Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you again here on this Shabbat. I hope all you folks have had a blessed week. I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to once again come and do one of these studies. I pray that it will be edifying for you, that you will gain some knowledge, that we will all gain some understanding of the truth. And so today I want to talk about, and it kind of ties into a lot of things, but I want to talk about the seed war. And because unless you understand about the seed war, you really cannot have an understanding about the culmination of history when everything comes to its conclusion, and why a lot of the events and things that we are seeing and will continue to see are going to, just explode in these happenings, these things that are going to be happening. We have to understand, where the origin of all this, come from. And so what I want to do is show that and show how it's tied to different events down through the biblical narrative, and how these things came about, and what we're going to see in the future, and why the Messiah, in Matthew 24, tells us about how it was in the days of Noah, that it's going to be like that at his return. And we have to understand what was going on before the flood, during the time of Noah, in order to understand what the Messiah was really trying to get across to us. And of course, that's why it tells us, to study to make ourselves approved workmen unto Elohim, who need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. Because he doesn't always come right out and tell you down to the last detail what he's trying to get across to us. He wants us to study his word, because the Father says, I tell you the end from the beginning. And of course, I'll show you these scriptures so that, don't take my word for it. As I always say, be a good Berean. Receive what I have to say with an open mind, but don't believe what I tell you. You study this. You study these scriptures to see whether those things that I'm telling you is so or not. I want you to do it. I want you to do your homework. I want you to study and learn this, because there is going to come a time whenever you're going to, it says they will become a famine of the word. That means they're going to be coming after it, and they already are. Around the world, people are being attacked for this word. And it's starting to happen here in the U.S. And it's only going to, as far as I'm concerned, it's only going to increase in intensity as we go forward. And so that's why it's important to get this in your heart and in your mind, so that when that time comes to where you can't get a hold of one of these, then it will be here. It will be in your mind. And the Ruach will bring it back to your mind when the time comes that you need it. So where I'm going to start at here is I'm going to start in Isaiah chapter 46. Isaiah chapter 46, verses 9 and 10. Remember the former things of old, for I am Elohim, and there is none else. I am Elohim, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. So what the Father is saying here is that he tells us what the end's going to be from the beginning. And whatever he declares, it is going to stand. There is no one or no thing that will ever stop what he has declared from happening. There isn't anyone that can do it. There isn't any being, there isn't any human, there isn't any machine, there isn't any technology that will stop him from doing what he determines to do. And so, declaring the end from the beginning. All right. Now, we're going to go back here and look at Matthew chapter 24, which I was just talking about Matthew 24. But we're going to look at Matthew chapter 24, verse 37 through 39. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days of Noah were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, he just gives, sort of the social implications of it, that people were kind of just still living their day-to-day lives just like right now. They were building, they were tearing down, they were marrying, they were, divorcing, they were, eating and drinking and doing the same things. They're just a day-to-day kind of living. But there's a whole lot deeper implications from this that it takes deep study to kind of catch this and pick up on it. So we're going to go back and if you want to know what the end's going to be like, you got to go back to the beginning. I tell you the end from the beginning. So we go back to Genesis. And of course, I think here recently I talked about this as far as this chapter and verse, Genesis chapter 3, beginning at verse 13. And Yahuwah Elohim said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And Yahuwah Elohim said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field, and upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Okay? Now you see, he's putting enmity between the woman and the serpent, and between her seed and his seed. Offspring. Okay? And of course, her seed, the offspring, is the Messiah. Yahushua, Jesus Christ. She is her seed, okay? And his is the Antichrist. And of course, there's been many Antichrists, and, going all the way back to Messiah. Antichrist has more than one connotation to it. Yes, he is opposed to Christ, but it also means in place of, instead of. This future Antichrist, and which I believe is already here, is the one that it talks about in Revelation and in Daniel, is already here, just waiting for the moment to appear and take control. But he is the seed of the serpent, the descendant of the serpent. Okay, and there's many of these that have come. And this has been an ongoing thing, and the first manifestation of this declaration of war by the Father happened in Genesis chapter 6. And this is Genesis chapter 6, 1 through verse 6. Chapter 6, verse 1 through 6. And of course, I would say, read the whole chapter. I mean, whenever I give you a specific group of text, scriptures, I'm just reading most of the time the subject matter. But it helps if you will read, the previous chapter and read the post chapter to give you more context. But it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, it's, when you read some of the extra biblical texts like Enoch and Jasher and all that, well, it'll talk about how when these sons of God, and by the way, they came down on Mount Hermon, which is in southern Lebanon, northern Israel, that area. That's where they descended at, and they took their oath to do this, was there on Mount Hermon. And that's, it's funny how even after the flood, that whole area, because that area there, the Father declared that was his place. That was that area from the Nile River in Egypt over to the Euphrates River was his place, his territory, his chosen place. He owns it all. He owns all of the earth. I mean, it belongs to him. But he had his special place that he chose for himself, and that's that area. What back here was Eden. Was there, and of course, some people believe Eden was removed. Either it's in the heart of the earth somewhere, or that it was hidden through some kind of a portal or whatever. I don't know. All I know is that area there, because Adam was made over there in Egypt, and he was carried and put into the Garden of Eden. But anyway, that area is, Satan and his minions, his offspring, have tried to control that area. And I'm going to show you through Scripture where whenever the Father began his plan, this is after the flood, he began to plan, and it was already planned out from the beginning before man was ever put here, but he began to put it into motion, put his plan into motion to recapture that area from these entities. And as I've talked about before, the Father does, from time to time, he does directly intervene into the things that go on in this world. And Satan does too. But most of the time, the war is being fought through people, through human beings. We're the focus. Man is the focus here in this world. We are the focus of the Father, and we're the focus of Satan. And so we're being used to fight this spiritual war in the physical. Because the war is a two-part war. It's a physical war and it's a spiritual war. There's a war that is going on that is unseen, that is being manifested here on the earth in the physical through us. And so that's why this seed war, this genetic war. And people say, well, Adam and Eve was the mother of all living. But they were not the first human beings. They were humans Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Six-day man. Adam was a special creation, and Eve was taken from Adam. But yes, Eve is the mother of all who are living now. There's no doubt about that, because only Noah and his family escaped. All them other, the pre-Adamites and all them were all destroyed. And so Adam and his descendants, Noah, and his family were the only ones that came through the flood to repopulate the world. And so, yes, we are all descended from Eve. But there is a lot of corruption that has happened. I mean, there where they came down here, and they took wives of all of whom they chose. And of course, like I say in the extra biblical text, it says that they negotiated with the parents of these women, and offered them a dowry or whatever to bless it, and to bless these unions. And Yahuwah said, "My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years." And now what he's talking about here is it's 120 years from then until destruction. He's not talking about their lifespan. Because, we know from the biblical narrative that some of them lived to be 900, Methuselah 969 years. But Methuselah's name means his death shall bring. So when Methuselah died, the flood came 7 days later. It says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Now, put that in your little storage file there, and also after that. Okay? It says, and when the sons of God, or Elohim, came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And Elohim saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord, or Yahuwah, that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Now, one of the things we got to look there is that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Now, in Matthew, where I read Matthew 24 a while ago, it didn't really say that, did it? But that's what's implied. He's telling us that just like it was in the days of Noah. Okay, and if you look at the world that we are in today, the way that things are playing out, it is getting to a point where men's thoughts are evil continually. The thoughts of their heart. It says and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continuously. But there's also other implications here in this, and of course in the extra biblical text, and that's why I encourage you, because these books like Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees, they are mentioned in the Scripture. They are quoted in Scripture. So I would encourage you to at least read these extra biblical texts, and they will give you a lot more context and a lot more of the narrative of what was going on. And in the book of Jasher, it says that these fallen ones, these B'nai Ha-Elohim, these sons of God, they were teaching man the mixing of humans and animals, chimeras, horsemen and stuff like that, minotaurs, centaurs, medusas, hydras. All kinds of genetic manipulation. But not only that, when you look at it, it says that, he looked down and all And so there was a whole lot of, again, this is the seed war. This is genetics. They were corrupting everything, plants, animals, people. And that's why the animals that came to Noah and that were taken onto the ark, the father compelled them animals to go on there because they were the animals that had not been genetically corrupted. I mean, but they would have, if he'd have let things go on, they would eventually have corrupted everything. And, and from this I want to mention, and, we have a store, so, we have to buy stuff off a grocery truck and stuff. And I've been seeing it, and I also go to the grocery store periodically. And from less than a month ago, going to a grocery store, and then going back here this past week, I could not believe how many items had been that are biologically or bioengineered, genetically modified. I mean, the last time I went, them items were not. And then when I go back this week, now they are. I mean, they're accelerating this stuff. The same thing. They are doing the same thing. They are genetically manipulating and corrupting everything. And by consuming these things, it is going to corrupt human genetics. And I've even, went to some of these companies and, sent them emails telling them, my displeasure in this and asking them why they were doing this. And they said, well, the FDA or the USDA says it's okay. Well, personally, I would not believe anything that the FDA or the USDA has to say. Nothing. They're the ones approving this stuff, but yet you go over to Europe and other countries and they will not allow this stuff. And not only that, but a lot of these substances that we put in our food. But I'm not just talking about the genetically modified stuff. I'm talking about just the regular ingredients that they've been putting in these things. These sugars, these natural flavorings. And most of these natural flavorings, a lot of them are highly addictive. I mean, they will addict you to these substances. That's why you see kids going by McDonald's, man, they go nuts wanting to go get McDonald's. Why? Because they put these food additives in there. And I mean, this is common knowledge. I mean, you can go look at that Super Size Me, the documentary, and also these interviews with people that have worked for these companies that create these food additives with the intention of, getting these additives that are addictive. And sugar is one of the most addictive substances there is. And it's in everything. Everything. And so you see the correlation between what was going on at the beginning to what's going on now. I tell you the end from the beginning. So when we began to do our research and our homework and we start studying the scriptures here, we see what's going on there, how they have come down here and they've created these hybrid humans. They've also genetically modified everything, they can. I mean, they doing it. They taught men to do it. Again, we've inherited lies. We've been always told by our religious leaders that, and by secular man, that these people were a bunch of Stone Age people, and, working with stone tools and copper tools and bones and stuff like that for carving. You cannot build a pyramid. I can tell you right now, there's no way that anybody can build a pyramid using primitive tools like they say. It's just impossible. I do not even believe today that with the technology that we have, and there's people that claim that they could be, that they could build a pyramid, but I don't believe they could. And one of the things that we found out about this great pyramid over there is it's not four-faced, it's eight-faced. It's got 8 faces on it. And, which makes it even that much more complex. And you can only tell when the sun is at the right position, you can only tell that it's got these bevels on each face. And Baalbek and Lebanon, and Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, and all of these megalithic structures we see around the world are pre-flood. It's just that they were so massive, they were able to survive it. And so, you see that we've inherited a bunch of lies about the truth about the past. It's a big conspiracy, not just with the secular world, but with the religious, the Babylonian religion system, to cover up history, to hide it, so that they can deceive. It's all part of the Great Deception. The Great Delusion or the Great Deception. It's not just the one thing. It's a multitude of things that have been deliberately concealed, deliberately hidden, and covered up to deceive. And, and because a lot of this deception begun hundreds of years ago, the Copernican heliocentric cosmology, for one, but other things, right after that's when Darwinism and, all these things that give life, the heliocentric cosmology give life to all of these other secular scientific dogma. And now, he tells us that in the last days all things will be revealed. Well, all these things are being revealed now. They can't hide it. They can't bury it. They can't cover it up anymore. And one of the things, praise be to Elohim, that I believe has been one of the the driving forces behind this is the internet, the World Wide Web. It can be used for a lot of bad things, but it can also be used as a source of research. Now, of course, I believe they're really trying to, people like Google and Facebook and these different, internet companies that really control most of what's going on with the internet, or getting more through AI. They're able to tell AI, go erase this or get rid of this. And so I think that they're slowly starting to censor more and more and more and more information off of the internet. Because for one, whenever you go on there and you pull up a landing page, say you Google a certain name or subject, and a landing page comes up, and you look up there and it'll say, 100,000 pages. But it won't let you go but maybe 40 pages, and then it says no more pages. I mean, just try it. Just try and see. It'll be like say up at the top, it'll tell you how many, references there is or whatever. Hundreds of thousands or even millions, sometimes even billions. But you cannot go past about 40 pages, and that's it. It will not let you go any further. That's censorship. And they're getting tighter and tighter on it. So this information, like I'm giving you here, is information that is going to get harder and harder and harder to find. We've reached our plateau of knowledge that we can get access to, and now it's starting to come back down. And So that window that the Father has given us to know the truth is closing. So, that's why this is important. And that's why also hard copy books are very important. Because they can't, if they don't know you got them, they can't destroy them. And, you can hide them and prevent, even your Bibles and stuff, you can hide a Bible, they can't get them all. Even though they're going to try eventually, because they're going to label this hate speech because it calls out sin. What they glorify as good, the Bible says is bad and evil. And it even says that they would be saying that in the last day. They'll be calling good evil and evil good. Well, it's happening. But also, that's why he had to do that, because if he hadn't destroyed the first part of our creation here, and only a genetically perfect Noah and his family allowed to go on, he would have had to destroy it all, because there would have been nothing that would have not been fully corrupted. There wouldn't have been nothing to save. He would have had to destroy it all and start over again. Or not. I don't know. But he was able, through Noah and through the things that had not been able to be, because the problem with a lot of this genetically modified stuff and genetically corrupt stuff is that it's not able to reproduce. It's not able to reproduce itself. Now, I'm not saying that about like the hybrids, the giants. I'm sure that they were able to produce offspring, but I'm talking about like the plants that were modified and the animals and stuff like that. They were not able to reproduce. They were genetically sterile, and so that's what's the case with these. All these genetically modified wheat, soybean, corn, all that stuff. It's not able to reproduce. That's why people that farm that stuff have to keep buying seeds from Monsanto and whoever, Pioneer and all these seed companies. They have to buy it from them because there's no, it's sterile. And they're doing it to the insects. They're doing it and releasing these things. They released all these mosquitoes down there in Florida. These genetically altered mosquitoes. And now, you hear about stuff, now you're hearing about leprosy down there in Florida, cases of leprosy popping up down there. Something that's never been heard of in this country that I know of. It's a biblical disease, man. Which they, I know that there are modern cases of leprosy because there's leprosy colonies. That are still in existence. But this goes to show you that those biblical plagues, like there in Exodus, when Moses was leading the people, telling Pharaoh to let the people go, and these plagues began to happen to them. And then not only that, but everybody should be that watches me should be familiar now with Deuteronomy 12 and Deuteronomy 28, the blessings and the cursings, and what comes from the cursings. The sickness, these biblical plagues, same kind of plagues that struck over there that he used to strike the Pharaoh in Egypt. The same kind of plagues that will end up striking us. That's why when you go back here, that's why Paul tells us that the scriptures, and of course he only had the Old Testament at his during his time. They were writing what we call the New Testament, but it hadn't been compiled. They were still. This was the Old Testament was what they was using, and he said they are for our learning, for our instruction in righteousness. They to show us the pitfalls and how to avoid them. So we see there, I mean, that this is what's going on, that, you know, that this is what Christ is talking about, as it was in the days of Noah, all this genetic corruption going on, and these hybrids. And they even got to the point where they began to, you know, these giants were so big that they were eating everything. I mean, they were eating up everything that humans could supply them. And then they began to eat the human beings. And that's when the people began to, you know, cry out, you know, for the Father to do something about it. And, you know, he said, oh, well, okay, I got to do something. But there you have it. I mean, and now we're going to look here, and this is the after. You know, they're in Genesis 6 where it said they were giants in the land in those days, and also after that. Well, this is the after that. But now, I'm not going to look at that one yet. I'm going to look here in Numbers, chapter 13, verse 32 and 33. And this is when Moses had led the people. They had come out of Egypt, and they were moving through the wilderness, and they were going down towards the promised land. And they get down there, and Moses decides to send out some spies to go spy out the land, see who the inhabitants of it was. And it says, and they, you know, when they come back, it says, and they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Now, I mean, that ought to tell you something right there. They were as grasshoppers in their sight. I mean, I'm not talking about a Goliath. I'm talking about, you know, 150, 200 footer. Because it says that they were like the cedars of Lebanon in stature. And so they, you know, and they come back with an evil report. But, you know, and this is one of the reasons why they wound up wandering. Because it was only 11 days journey from where they were at there in Goshen in Egypt. From there to the Jordan River. To the entrance into the land of Canaan was 11 days journey. But because whenever they got this report back, instead of saying, you know, because Caleb and Joshua were two of those spies, they said, we don't care. We've got Elohim on our side. Let's go take the land. You know, they had faith. They had belief. The others murmured and said, we should have just stayed, you know, it'd been better to die in Egypt than to go down here and be killed by giants. And because of it, the Father was going to kill them. He was going to kill them all. But Moses interceded for them. And so because of it, they were caused to wander through the wilderness until that generation, those adults that were alive, the older people, all perished in the wilderness. And it was Joshua's generation and Caleb's generation that led those children and the younger generation into the land of Canaan. You know, and so because right here, here's where it is. It says, and all the congregation, this is in chapter 14, and all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, and the whole congregation said unto them, would Elohim that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would Elohim we had died in this wilderness. Huge, huge lack of belief from an Elohim who had just, through all of these plagues and these wondrous demonstrations of his power there in Egypt, and yet in such a short period of time they had forgotten it. I mean, in just 11 days. Well, I think them spies went out and they were gone for about, a month or so or something like that. I'm not sure, but I would have to go back and read. That's why it's a good idea to read all of it. But I'm just bringing some of these scriptures out here to show you that these hybrids and these abominations were continuing on even after the flood. It wasn't something that ended in the flood. It just, but now these second generation giants were not as big as those first generation ones, the Titans. They continued to get smaller and smaller at that point. But even at that, they were still those sons of Anak. That first generation there of them, I mean, that were dwelling there at that point, they were, huge giants. And when it talked about a land flowing with milk and honey, it literally was. Because there were animals that these giants had that were giants. Giant cows, giant bees. And the honey was running out of their hives. I mean, the honey was so much honey that it was running like a stream. And the same with the milk. It was just dripping out of the udders of these big giant cows. And I mean, it was flowing like a stream. So, I mean, that's where the land flowing with milk and honey, I mean, it was literal. A land flowing with milk and honey. Because these giants required giant animals. I mean, because if you're 150 feet, 200 feet tall, a cow would be like eating a meatball or something. I mean, you could just toss a whole cow in your mouth, I mean, no, they had to have animals commensurate with their size, and so they developed these animals. Again, genetically modifying animals and creating these large, animals. And we can see them doing that now. I mean, it's not that, people think, oh, man, that's crazy, No, it's not. I've seen some cows that were, the cow was so big, and this has been a long time ago. There's even bigger ones now. But I was at the state fair where I used to live, and there was cows that their back was way taller than me, and I'm 6'6". So they their back was a foot above my head. You were basically looking right in their rump, and they are even bigger than that now. I saw they had a hog there that was 1,100 pounds, 1,100 pound hog, and all of these other animals are being, food animals and stuff are being genetically engineered to be bigger, to produce more meat. Chickens, I've seen chickens that could go from an egg to being full grown, ready to eat in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And so, we're seeing, and we're going to see a whole lot more. We don't know what they're doing in a lot of these secret labs they got all over the place. That they, and we know they're trying to create super soldiers, genetically modified humans that can eat grass and can break cellulose down and turn it into energy or turn it into sugars or whatever in your guts. Night vision, extremely acute vision, like night vision. I mean, just on and on. I mean, and they readily admit this. I mean, this is not something that's, covert. No, they are, they openly talk about this. And of course, their argument is, well, China and Russia's doing it. We need to do it. And that's how this stuff gets perpetuated, you see. And this is those fallen ones manipulating these, different powers. They manipulate them with that mentality to think, well, they're doing it, so we got to do it. And they don't realize that these entities are just playing everybody against each other. And they want them to develop these so-called super soldiers and outfit them with these chips, these cyborgs, basically cyborgs, with these things in them and stuff like that. And so they're going headstrong. And then when you hear, the rhetoric of these people, like I've said before, over there at the World Economic Forum, that's exactly what they intend for everybody. It's not just super soldiers and stuff. It's what they intend to do to all human beings, if they can. That's their, to implant. I mean, that Youssef, Noah Harari, and Klaus Schwab, that's exactly what they talk about doing to people. Putting chips, these chips in their forehead or in your hand. And it says if you don't do this, you're going to be left behind. Now again, they're trying to play on people's, to play on them, saying, well, if you don't do this, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be like a caveman. They're going to be, the people that do this are going to be intellectually superior to you. You're going to become like a milk cow or something. When you talk, you're going to sound like a cow going moo, compared to these people that do the transhumanism. And that's what they call it, is transhumanism. And I mean, information about this is readily available. They want people to know about this. And they want people to come to accept it. And because they're going to they're going to promote all of the what so-called benefits of it. Of letting these, move this around. The sun is kind of getting into it here. There we go. But they're trying to brainwash people into believing that, oh man, you can have super strength. Like the Marvel comics. You can be like the Wolverine or Spider-Man, or that's all that stuff is. That's conditioning. It is programming people. Same thing with all the alien stuff, and the gods, Thor, and Hercules, and all these different characters that they have been putting out there. Iron Man. I mean, that's they want people to get that in their head that, oh, if you do this, you can be like that. Let us just let us genetically modify you. And of course, they're doing it to people experimentationally. That's what all this, these jabs and all that stuff it's an experiment. And we're the guinea pigs. Humans are the guinea pigs to test this stuff out to see what the effects of it's going to be and what they need to do to counter those effects so that they can make these modifications to human beings without killing them all. And so, and of course I believe some of them, they want to get rid of some people. They want to get rid of certain people. What they consider, the dregs of society, or the the ones that have genetics that they don't want their genetics. They're looking for certain kinds of genetics, and that's the ones they're trying to do these things to. And so that's why the Messiah told us it's going to be just like it was there in the beginning. Same kind of stuff going on. All right, now we're going to look here in Deuteronomy chapter 2. And Deuteronomy chapter 2, and I would say read this whole chapter, but this is when they came down into Kadesh Barnea, and this is where because again, whenever they had they come to the end of their wandering, and they were going to go in now. They were going to go into the promised land. And the reason that Moses did not go in was because he smoked the rock, and he was told to speak to the rock, and he didn't. He struck it with his staff, and because of it, he was not allowed to go into the promised land. He was allowed to see it, but they went because whenever you read this narrative here, it talks about they come over there to the area where Esau is, Edom. And he told them not to mess with Esau, the descendants of Esau. It wasn't Esau, he'd been long dead, but it was his descendants there in Edom, the Edomites. And so they had, when Esau, and that's one of the things that's why God hated Esau. Not only did he despise his birthright, but he went over there among the Horites and he married one of them and started producing offspring with them. And the Horites were satyrs. That's their capital was Seir. And so, but then once he got in league with them, got married in them, he went over there and took it over, because Esau was a warrior. He was a mighty hunter. And so he was, the Horims also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them. But he had went over there and dwelt with them, and over time, they took them over. But he said, "Don't go, over there and mess with them, for I have given Mount Seir unto Esau for possession." And they were satyrs over there because during the time of Abraham, he negotiated with one, Ephraim, the Horite. He negotiated with him for a place to bury Sarah. And I think the word the Horim or whatever is like fawn-like or something, they had a fawn-like appearance. And of course, you know what a fawn is. I mean, it's a baby deer. So they had a deer-like appearance or whatever. And so, these things were there. Same thing with Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah was not, mainly occupied by human beings. No, it was giants there, and there were also a lot of different kinds of chimeras there. And the Father allowed this stuff and let it go on, because again, like I said, you read this here, there was other peoples that he told them to leave alone. The Moabites, the descendants of Lot, Abraham's nephew. The Emims dwelt therein in the times past, and the people great and many and tall as the Anakims. They were giants too, the Emims. But it says, "And the Lord said unto me, distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession." And of course that was the area that was near where Sodom and Gomorrah had been. I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities right next to it were all destroyed. There's only one of them small cities that was near there that didn't get destroyed, and that's where Lot went after the destruction, was to one of them little small cities. But to begin with, they went up into the mountains there, and him and his two daughters, because his wife was changed to a pillar of salt because she looked back, on the destruction, and they were commanded not to. But there were certain areas that they were told not to conquer, and then there was some that they didn't, that they were told to conquer, and it come back to haunt them over time. But they were these. They was the Zanzumim, they were the Avims, they were the Emims, they were the Raphaim, they were the Anakim. These were all giants. They were either giants or they were like the Zanzumim. Their name means those who buzz. They made some kind of a noise, a buzzing noise, and it was real irritating. And then you had the other ones. I mean, like some of them were these troglodytes or cryptids. They lived in caves and they lived underground. And so Moses and Joshua and them were commanded to kill these off. There was some of them that they didn't kill off, like Esau and them. Of course, they had become intermingled with them, and so had Lot. And if you look, further on up in time, the Edomites and the Moabites they hated Israel, and they're bitter enemies. But the Father used them. Here's where it is. It says that also was accounted a land of giants, for giants dwelt there in old time, and the Ammonites called them the Zamzumims. And the Ammonites, that's over there where Jordan is today. The Jordanians, they're the ancient Ammonites. Their capital city over there is Ammon. It's been that for thousands and thousands of years. And then they had the Horims. Which the Esau destroyed them. But, you had all these people dwelling there. They had all this time, because Satan knew about the seed war, and he knew, about the promise to Abraham and how he was going to bring Abraham there, and then ultimately he was going to go down. They were, the descendants of Abraham were going to go down into Egypt, and he was going to make a great nation there of them. And so Satan had all this time to prepare that area with these Nephilim to fill the land with them. And so that by the time that Moses and Joshua led the people over there, they were kind of ready for them. But Yahweh went before them. He led them against these giants and against these Nephilim and stuff. He was their real strength, and he was the one really that was defeating these. But he wanted them to believe. It was about belief on the part of the Israelites. It was about belief on their part. You got to believe that I'm going to defeat these enemies for you. You got to believe in me. You got to trust in me. And when they did, he did. And there's a lot of people who say, man, he was genocidal, he was crazy, he was, a homicidal maniac, he wanted to kill every man, woman, and child. Well, that's because they don't have understanding about what these things were. They were not human beings. They were hybrids. They were hybrid humans, and they were not supposed to exist. They were created in contradiction to Elohim's law and the law of creation. They were not his creation. And so they were an abomination. And they were procreating and filling up the land with them. And he understood that if they were not wiped out, that they would eventually overtake all human beings, and that all human beings would be genetically corrupted hybrids. That there would not be any human beings that were not corrupted. And so, just like there before the flood came, the whole earth had become corrupted. and except for Noah and his family. And that was only because the Father had preserved Noah. And because if they could have got a hold of him, they would have either killed him or they would have changed him too. I mean, it would have just been, it's just like what's coming. This is exactly what's going to happen now is that they're going to, like, if you don't take this, you don't become transhuman, then we're going to annihilate you because you're not worthy to be, we're not going to let you breathe air or eat food because you're not one of us. You're not transhuman. And that's exactly what's going to end up happening. They're going to just look at us as, anybody that doesn't take this stuff, they're going to look at you as inferior, and that they don't want you contaminating the new human beings, the new human 2.0 or whatever. And they have really ramped up their game. I mean, they ain't backing down and they ain't slowing down. And that's why, I've talked about the Hegelian dialectic, that the idea of having a choice, controlled oppositions, where, the Democrats and the Republicans and all that kind of stuff is all meant to distract you away from what's really going on. If you're watching this debate between, and this conflict going on between the Democrats and the Republicans, then you're not going to see what they're really doing. These laws that they're passing over here that's allowing them to make these genetic modifications and the food modifications and all this kind of stuff. They keep you distracted away with this, stuff that mundane means nothing stuff. Like this stuff that's going on, with Trump and trying him and all that stuff. All that stuff is meant to be a distraction, to keep you away from what they're really doing. And they're all in on it. It's all Hegelian dialectic. And yet, we still, as a nation of people, are still mostly oblivious to it. People just don't get that they're being played. They're getting played, and they don't know it. They don't even realize it. They have become so brainwashed and indoctrinated with this. I mean, because this is something it's not something that's new. This is something that's been being pushed and worked on and constructed, this system, for hundreds of years now. I mean, it's not something that just happened. I mean, this has been a concerted, orchestrated, organized, planned thing to happen. And they have perfected the idea of misdirection, of keeping you focused on stuff that really don't mean nothing, to draw your attention away from things that they're doing, like 9/11. They done 9/11, and they already had the Patriot Act and all that stuff in place. They already had it drawn up. But the only way that they could convince the American people to go along with it, they had to create some kind of a crisis. And of course, pretty much, basically, when they done that and people agreed to it and they made it law, it pretty much, done away with the Constitution. Even though people think they still got all these rights, you don't. They just kind of give you the illusion that you do, but really you don't. Them Patriot 1 and Patriot 2 pretty much took away our rights. And so, that's what they do. They keep you focused and distracted. Same thing with this over here going on over there in Ukraine. That's all that is. That's all part of it. It's all part of the distraction. While they're getting everything ready to roll out this central bank digital currency and to do away with cash and, to relegate more and more power over to a global body like the UN or something, Biden signing this thing, this treaty, and really the president is not supposed to be able to ratify any treaty. The Congress has to ratify a treaty. But yet they've been doing this for years. I mean, going way back to Bill Clinton and even beyond, where they've been, the president's been signing off on these treaties that he does not have the authority to sign off on, not without the approval of Congress first. But yet they're doing it, and giving all this power over to the World Health Organization so that they can declare that there's some kind of a health emergency and shut this country down. And if the people buck up against them, they'll send UN troops in here. See, that's how to get around using our own military against us. Because probably, most than likely, most of the people in our military that ain't been, hybridized or genetically modified, or, MK Ultra or something, they would refuse to go against their own people. But there's a lot of these people that are from other countries that are, members of the UN. They wouldn't have one bit. As a matter of fact, they'd love to come in here and kill a bunch of us off. They wouldn't like nothing better. But anyway, and a lot of them are these descendants from these, and the other thing is that these giants, some of them escaped. They didn't get all wiped out. Some of them left from over there, and they got scattered out around the world. They come over here to America. I mean, there's overwhelming evidence now of them being here. These giant mounds, these earth mounds and all that stuff, where, and these America Stonehenge, like up there in New Hampshire, they found plaques with engraved, words on them that were, a Middle Eastern language, Aramaic or Phoenician or something like that. Where did that come from? If they wasn't over here. The first European over here was Columbus. Well, no, we finding out now that the Russians were over here long before we were, and Chinese were over here, and the Egyptians were over here, and there were Phoenicians over here, Vikings come over here. I mean, there's been a lot of different cultures and people that's been over here long before Columbus. But see, this is again, they want to cover up history, hide history, and they don't want people to know that the earth is flat, that the continents had drifted apart after the time of Peleg, and that for a long time people could still see other continents from their own continent. I mean, you could see Asia from the western Pacific shore of America. You could still see Asia off in the distance. And the same with Europe and Africa. You could go over on the East Coast and you could still see it. And I'm talking thousands of years ago, but you could still 2,000, or 3,000 years ago, people could still see these other continents off in the distance. They were drifting apart. And this happened during the time of Peleg, which was about 150 years after 150 years after Nimrod and the Tower of Babel and the confounding of the languages, because these people were still trying to get back to that area over there. And I guess Father said, you know what, I'll fix you. You're going to go where I tell you. You're going to stay where I tell you at. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to separate the land. I'm going to divide it. And he did. And that's why you have continents now, because there wasn't any continents as we have today. There was one large body of land, a supercontinent. We call it Pangea. But and even mainstream scientists, believe that there was a Pangea, and then at one time, even before that, Botswana or something, Botswana land or something like that. But they say it was hundreds of millions of years ago, whenever it broke apart. But that's not true. Things like that can happen and happen very rapidly. We just, this is part of that, deception, that events that have happened took millions and millions and millions of years or billions of years, and it's not so. It's not so. Things can happen very rapidly. Okay, now I'm going to look here in the book of Joshua, and this is just again showing these. This is Joshua chapter 12 and verse 4. And the coast of Og, king of Bashan, which was the remnant of the giants that dwelt at Ashtaroth and Edrei, and reigned in Mount Hermon and in Salach, in all Bashan unto the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and half Gilead, the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. I mean, you know, he dwelt there in this area, and of course, this was outside of the land on the other side of the Jordan. This was on the east side of the Jordan, and so Moses was with them whenever they defeated King Og of Bashan there at Kadesh Barnea. And it talks about his bedstead, and I was going to show you that there. I thought I had it wrote down. Let's see. Let me look back here in Deuteronomy. Oh, here it is. Deuteronomy chapter 3 and 1. Here again it says, then when we turned and went up the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And of course they smote him, and none was left to him remaining. They destroyed all of them. And then in chapter 3, 8 and 11, and it says, it took at that time out of the hand of the two kings of the Amorites, and the land that was on this side Jordan, from the river of Arnon unto Mount Hermon, which Hermon, that's where them original children of Elohim, the sons of Elohim, came down there on Mount Hermon. That's why they keep, they kind of settled on that place there, because that was the father's, his chosen place. So they keep trying to take this area over. And this final conflict that comes at the end, that's what they're still trying to do. They want to conquer that land there and keep it. That's why the final conflict, there at where they gather at Armageddon to go up against Jerusalem, and for the final battle. That's why, because that's where it all began, and that's where it's going to end at. But and here it is, and it says, which Hermon the Sidonians called Sirion, and the Amorites call it Shinar, all the cities of the plain, and all Gilead, and all Bashan, unto Salcah and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron, is it not, in Rabath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. So that puts it at 15 feet, 16 feet, because a cubit is 18 inches. It says according to the cubit of a man, because there's different cubits. One cubit is 18 inches, the other one's 25. So, but it says this is the cubit of a man, which I think is 18 inches. But you do the math, 9 times 18 inches. I mean, that's 15, 16 feet. was his bed, and it was a bed of iron. And ain't this funny? I mean, this is during the Bronze Age. So, where did they get the ability to make iron beds? Because the Iron Age was later. So, I mean, apparently, because they had technology, they had knowledge and stuff that regular humans didn't have. They had building knowledge, how to build huge structures and stuff that humans couldn't construct and stuff. And it's this generation of these giants after this, after the flood, that are the ones that built places like Stonehenge, and some of these other megalithic structures that are not antediluvian. Okay, the pyramids, the Great Pyramids, and the Baalbek, where they got the 2,000-ton stones and stuff like that, Pumapunku, all of those were antediluvian. They were before the flood. But these other structures, like the Stonehenge and some other megalithic structures that are after the flood, and they were built by these because whenever the children, the Israelites, began to go in there and with Elohim and run these giants out, and some of them, when they realized they were coming, because he said he put a fear in them of the Israelites, and some of them began to flee out of the area and go to other places, and they came over here to America. They went to Tarshish, which is England. They went over to, areas over in Crete, Syracuse, over in the Greek Isles. They wound up going around a lot of other places. That's why, when you read the Greek mythology and stuff, you find out, I mean, they were giants in a lot of these places. I mean, some of them names of them islands over there, that's what they mean, is the island of giants or something like that, like Malta and places like that. That's why they got all them megalithic structures on there, because these giants were there and they were building them. And they went to other places too. And they're still here they're here on the earth. They're in the earth. They're down in the heart of, down in the earth, in cave systems. I mean, these cave systems, some of them, they go way down into the earth. And so, they were there waiting for their time again to come up out of the earth and be revealed. And that's when men's hearts going to be failing them for these things coming upon the earth. Not just from in the earth, but from above. Now, let's see, Joshua 12:4. I read that. Now, I'm going to look here at Joel. Here's another one I got here in Joshua. I forgot to write it down. And this is in chapter 13 of Joshua, verse 12. And all the kingdom of Og in Bashan, which reigned in Ashtaroth and in Edrei, who remained of the remnant of the giants, for these did Moses smite and cast them out. See, he cast them out. He smote them and he cast them out. So those are the ones that kind of spread out and went to other places, trying to survive, I guess. But it says, nevertheless, the children of Israel expelled not the Geshurites nor the Maacathites, but the Geshurites and the Maacathites dwell among the Israelites until this day. And they, some of them they got along with all right, and they served the Israelites. But there were some like the Philistines and others, which are modern day Palestinians. That area was never called Palestine until the Romans was there. The Romans are the ones that called the Levant Palestinia, and that's where they, and they took that name. These Maasorites and the Philistines, they took that title Philistine, Palestinians. They took that to try and make it so that, oh, we've been here always. Well, and they probably have been there. But they were never given any inheritance in that land or given that land. I mean, like I said, you could read Joshua and you'll see how the land was divided up and who was driven out, who was allowed to stay. Like the Edomites and the Moabites and the Amorites, they were allowed to stay there because the Father had purpose for them. And he gave that land to them for their inheritance. But so you see that this seed war has been playing out all along, and it's never really stopped. They have, but today what we are seeing is these alien abductions. And, if it was just a couple of cases here and there, you could probably discount it and say it's just people's imagination or somebody just making, deluded or whatever. But there are thousands and thousands and thousands of documented cases of people, and they tell the same story. And I'm talking about people from different countries, never met each other, never heard the other people's stories. I mean, these are people that, some of them lived in very remote jungles, tribal people that just somehow or another their story got out. As time went on, they recorded it in their own language and in whatever, but it eventually, as the modern era moved along, it got out, and it was the same kind of story that this person in New York told, or this person in London told, or this person in Singapore or wherever. So they're these people are telling the same story, and it's exactly what's going on with these cattle mutilations. And when they mutilate these animals, there's no blood, there's precision cuts on them, and their organs and stuff are missing. Their eyes, their tongues, their wombs. And now, over there in Germany, they got artificial wombs. And what I think they are is I think they're cow wombs, because human and cow blood are very similar, even compatible, I understand. So they're using the wombs of cattle to create artificial wombs to produce these human animal hybrids and stuff. The abomination. But that's what's going on, and of course people, oh man, that's crazy. Well, it's not. I mean, this is stuff that is published information that's published in scientific journals. I mean, this is not me making some kind of story up. If I bring you information on here, and again, I wished I had understood how to do this stuff, editing and all that stuff, to where I could add in some of this stuff. I mean, maybe I'll get the time where I can, sit down and learn, teach myself, because I don't have anybody else to come and work with me and help me to do it. But maybe I can teach myself, and then I can start showing you these documents. And they're in published journals. Scientific America, National, American Medical Journal of American Medical Association, Lancet. I mean, these are all supposedly the elite scientific journals that people publish their findings and their research in. And so these things, again, like with this chipping, the biochip, and you see Elon Musk working on that NeuroNet technology. Well, he's way behind the 8 ball. I mean, that stuff's been out for a while. And there's people like Bill Gates and all, that have patents on these chips and stuff. And what Bill Gates' intention is to put these chips in people, and our bodies basically become a financial transaction mechanism. In order, and it's all part of the central bank digital currency. Initially they're going to have a card or whatever that you get your money with, but ultimately it's going to be this chip, and your body's going to become like a node in this system, and you'll be able to be tracked everywhere you go, and it won't be, and every move you make, everything you buy, anything you sell, anything you do is going to be tracked, and it's going to be tracked through AI, because humans couldn't do it. And of course, the majority of the development of this kind of technology has been going on over in China, an authoritarian dictatorship. I mean, where they have no laws, no real laws. The law that they have is the law that they want to enforce at the time, or that they want to put out there. So, this is reality. It's not no science fiction. All right, now, this is Joel chapter 2. This is Joel's army. And a lot of the evangelicals and all that say it's the Christians, we're Joel's army. No, we're not. This is in chapter 2 of Joel, verses 1 through 14. And again, read the whole chapter, but I'm just going to read a few selected verses here to go along with what I'm talking about here. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong, there hath not ever been the like thereof, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolation, a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. The appearance of these entities are as horses. They're minotaurs or centaurs or whatever you want to call them. The appearance of them is the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be pained. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. And of course, when you go back there to Genesis 6, it says they were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. They run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one on his ways. And they shall not break their ranks, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. Again, these are, these genetic abominations. Now, I don't know whether humans are making them or whether these are something that the satanics, the satanic realm is, has done, or whether the Father did it. I mean, they come out of the earth, because I'm going to show you in Revelation where they come out of the earth. They shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall, and they shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall be dark, and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And Yahweh shall utter his voice before his army. Now, this is his army. For his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of Yahweh is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? Therefore also now saith Yahweh, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your heart and not your garments, and turn unto Yahweh your Elohim, for he is gracious and merciful, and slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. Who knoweth if he will return and repent, and leave a blessing behind him, even a meat offering and a drink offering unto Yahweh your Elohim. So, you know, this is his army. And it says there's never been one like it, that he has prepared for this time. And it talks about the sun and the moon being dark. And I talked about this, I don't know if it was last week or the week before last, about Joe Biden now. And of course, he ain't the only one that's been saying this, but, you know, it's significant that the so-called leader of the free world, or the Western world, Joe Biden, come out and said, we're considering blotting out or blocking out the sun, with sulfur dioxide to combat climate change. And I talked about it before about sackcloth of hair, the sun becoming like sackcloth of hair. And, sackcloth is kind of a brownish color, and it's made from camel hair or it's made from goat hair. So it's not black. It's kind of a dark, muddled color. And whenever you have like a volcano erupt and it pumps out a bunch of sulfur dioxide, the sky gets kind of like sackcloth. Well, that's what these idiots are talking about doing. But they're talking about doing it themselves, pumping all this sulfur dioxide in the air. And I don't really think that it needs no help, because there's a bunch of volcanoes that are going off everywhere. It's like 50 or something like that that are spewing right now, all around, all over the earth, and more that they're projecting and predicting that's going to start erupting. And they're pumping out sulfur dioxide, and and this climate change stuff and all this crazy weather is they're doing. They're the ones they've been doing this, and now it's kind of run away from them, and they can't control it. It's just kind of took on a life of its own, and so messed up the natural hydrological cycle that it's got a lot of unpredictable consequences coming from it, and there's nothing they can do about it. They've kind of, but yet they're still doing this stuff. They're still using these HARP systems. They're still pumping all this stuff in the air through stratospheric aerosol injection. They're doing all this stuff. I mean, you can go look up Dana Wigington. He's been following this stuff for years, and he's got a huge library of videos on it, and showing exactly how they're doing it, what they've been doing, and what the effects of it, on the environment is, on the water, on the plants, on the earth, on the ground. All this aluminum and barium and strontium and all kinds of other elements that they're pumping up there. Not to mention that they're pumping out bacteria, funguses, and stuff like that. These people are just totally insane. That's because a lot of them are, some of them are humans that are possessed, but some of them are actually some of these entities that are just appearing as human beings, and they're just doing all this stuff. All right, now I'm gonna look here in Revelation chapter 9. Well, actually, I'm gonna look here at Luke, since I went to Luke there, 21, chapter 25 and 26. It says, "And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves are roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken." And then once this, once the heavens are, the powers of the heavens are shaken, that's when you see the Son of Man coming. Then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. I just was watching, I don't know if y'all familiar with Mr. BBB 333, but he follows a lot of this phenomenon and stuff. People send him pictures from around the world of these craft and stuff that are appearing in the air, and now these planetary bodies. They had a picture, several pictures from different locations that people filmed the same thing. It looked like a planet next to the sun, and people think the sun's 93 million miles away, and it's not. It's inside the firmament. It's inside here with us. And these planets, they're not planets. They're planetates. They're wandering stars. They're these entities. There's Satan, which a lot of people believe that the planet Saturn is Satan. It's a craft. It's a way to move around, and they're going to be showing up. They already are. That's why they're seeing these planetary looking bodies that are showing up next to the sun. They're coming from further out, up in the aether. They're coming down because they're being cast down here. They're being cast back down here on the earth, and I'm going to show you that. We're going to look here. This is in Revelation chapter 9. Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 through 11. "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes," now listen to this. This is what I just read there in Joel. "And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold," helmets. "And their faces were as the faces of men. And they had hair as the hair of a woman, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. And I looked these up in the concordance, in the Hebrew, actually in the Greek, because those are Greek words. One of them is number 3. Let's see. I lost my spot there. Oh, here it is. All right. All right. Number 3 in the Greek dictionary, Abaddon, destruction or destroyer. All right, and then we're going to look at Apollyon. Apollyon. Let's see. It's 623. Apollyon, destroyer. Okay, so the word Apollyon or Abaddon is the word for destroyer. And when you go back into Exodus, now I'm going to look here also at Revelation chapter 12. That was Revelation chapter 9 verses 1 through 14, or 1 through 11. Now we're going to look here at chapter 12 verse 9. And I believe this is what's going on right now. And this is one of the other reasons why they want to block out sun and cloud, to keep the clouds in the sky, keep it cloudy, is because of these battles that are going on between Michael and his angels and Satan, or the dragon and his. And this is in chapter 12. And the great, it says, and there was, this is beginning at chapter 12 verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I believe that that is what we are seeing now. All these appearing of these craft, these planet-like orbs that we're seeing, they're revealing themselves because but that's why the government, Tucker Carlson, and all these other, Skinwalker Ranch, all these things are starting to come out. Because their narrative that they are creating is the narrative that these entities are aliens. They're not what they really are, which are fallen Malahim, fallen angels that rebelled against our Creator, and now they're coming down here. And it says he deceives the whole world. The whole world. And he would deceive even the elect of Elohim if it were possible. But the reason that he will not be able to deceive the elect is because they have this, and the Ruach HaKodesh, to lead them to all truth and to teach them things, teach them all things, teach them this. Because if we know this, that's why the battle against this is coming. I mean, it's started to try and do away with the scripture. And they even rewrite it. I mean, I've heard that they're trying to use AI to rewrite a new scriptures. One that is inclusive and accepting of all things evil. Instead of calling it out for what it is. But we're going to look here, and the destroyer, he's been around. It's not nothing new. When we look here in Exodus chapter 12, verse 23, and this is during the Passover. Whenever they took the blood, and they took the blood of a lamb, and they took the blood and they put it on the doorpost and the lintels of the doors. And it says, "For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, Yahweh will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you." The destroyer, that was Apollyon, Abaddon, Shiva. The Hindu god with all the arms does his dance of destruction. That's who. And over there at CERN, they've got a statue of Shiva over there at CERN. And I believe that where I just read there in Revelation about the bottomless pit being opened up, that the angel comes down having the key, which the key to me means knowledge. Having the knowledge to unlock the seal that's over the bottomless pit, which is there at Pollyonicon, which is where CERN's located at. There was the ancient Roman city there, Pollyonicon, that was where the temple of Apollo was at, the destroyer. And they believe that the seal to the bottomless pit is right there. And see, that seal is so powerful that no Satan or none of his demons or anybody like that can open it. They don't have that power. But they're trying to convince us to help them by building this machine over there, and an angel is going to come down and give them the key that opens it. In other words, the knowledge. And they're wanting to build this thing. I just watched a video last night about it, sort of a documentary about CERN and what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to build that thing bigger. Right now it's 17 kilometers in diameter, and they want to extend it to 100 kilometers. And the power right now, it's able to, whenever they have a collision in this thing between two protons, it releases 13.7 trillion electron volts. There's more power released in that fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second than is produced by all the power plants in the world combined. It's hard to get your mind around. But they're wanting to increase it to where they're producing 100 trillion electron volts of energy. And there's already people that work over there that have come out and said that they've seen stuff whenever they fire that thing up and they do these collisions and stuff. They've seen what appeared to be Shiva dancing. I don't know. And I think that's exactly what's going on, is that they're, they're working towards opening the bottomless pit. And they had, you can go look it up about when they opened that Gothard tunnel over there, Gothard tunnel, they had this big ritual celebration, and it was as satanic as it gets. And it showed them opening the bottomless pit and this entity coming up out of it. And so, and it all began with the seed war. It all started there in Genesis 3:15. Started this war. It's a seed war, genetic war, And they have been modifying human beings and mixing the oat, because I can show you another scripture here in Daniel. I think it's in Daniel. Let's see. Might be Daniel 11. Let's see. Here it is. It's in Daniel chapter 2. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and steweth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it as of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of the iron and part of the clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." So who is the they that are, mixing with the seed of men? Who is this they that are mixing with the seed of men? That's these alien abductions. They're taking people's sperm, they're taking people's eggs, and they're going in and they're mixing their own DNA with it and producing these offspring. And from what I understand, that these people that they've interviewed that had these abduction experiences would be pregnant, and then 2 or 3 months later they would come and get them, and they would take the fetus, and I guess they put them in some kind of an artificial womb or something, but they would take them, and then several years later they would bring the person back and they would show them these children and ask them if they, what did they think? Did they look human? And so what they've been doing all along is been trying to, because I think probably some of the earlier ones was like these things that was there in Canaan, they were hybrids, and they were obviously different than humans, and but I think they've been working towards making them to where you can't tell the difference, and and that's these people, I think, that are in power. Like they're in Europe, all these families are all interrelated, and these people that are the banking, the banksters, the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and the Paseurs and all these different people, they're all these hybrids. And they've been slowly putting them into places of power, slowly moving them around where they want them at. People like Klaus Schwab's probably one of them. And Yosef Noah Harari, they all these people are probably these hybrids. The ones that have been mixed with the seed of men. So, ponder on it. Salah, meditate on this, think about it, study it, and I believe that you will come to the same conclusion that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these events unfold right in front of our face. And we see the effort by governments, by these, non-government entities like the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, the UN. When you look at the Agenda 2030 of the UN, and you look at the Great Reset by the World Economic Forum, it all has to do with transhumanism and implanting these chips in people, making people into basically cyborgs. And it's, and they're putting it out there. But what they're trying to, construe to people is, oh, this is something on down the road. It's like I said a while ago. They do these things to distract you away from what they're really doing. They're setting all the mechanisms in place to start implementing this plan. They already have the knowledge, they already have the technology, they already have the wherewithal to do it. It's just that they've got to bring about the conditions whereby people will be willing to do it. And that's the chaos that we see going on. What's going on over there in Ukraine. These, rioting in the streets everywhere. Homeless encampments all over the place. Border invasions, not just here, but over in Europe and everywhere else. All these immigrants, just invading these countries. And it's people like George Soros and this World Economic Forum and those people that are affiliated with it, the elitists, that are financing all this stuff. I mean, they got all the money, they got all the wealth. I mean, so it's no big deal to them. And this is the thing about them people. People, like the Walt Disney and Target and Anheuser-Busch, these companies that are pushing all of this transgender ideology and all these other woke stuff. They don't care if them companies go under. Those companies are a drop in the bucket to the wealth that these people control. I mean, it is a literal drop in a 5-gallon bucket. So they could care less. All they want is to have their agenda put forward, and the agenda that they're putting it forward, it is to divide people. It's they really, that stuff don't mean nothing to them. They could care less about all that stuff. They don't care about them people. It's about dividing us. It's about dividing America and the world so that you can conquer people. That's how you conquer people, is by dividing them. And so you create all of these disenfranchised groups, by race, by sex, by ethnicity, by nationality, by, whatever means necessary to divide people, they're going to do it. And then, once they got you divided, then they use the economic system to conquer you. They won't even have to fire a shot. But what will happen is, with a country like America, you are going to have, I mean, there's just no doubt about it. There is going to be a segment of America that is going to, fight back. And then that's when you'll have, like, the United Nations or other countries that will, come against us. And, the whole world will just be, that's when, the whole world goes into chaos, complete chaos and war, and against this system, and they'll defeat this system, and then that's when Satan himself will come up, and this worship of the beast and all that stuff starts. But in order for that to happen, this Babylonian system will have to go down. And when you look at what it talks about, how these kings conspire against the harlot, because they hate her, but they use her to get this system going, this global system going. They will use this Babylonian system, this religious system, and this religious system thinks that it's the one that's got the control, because if you look in Revelation chapter 12, I believe, where it shows the harlot riding the scarlet-colored beast, she's riding the beast. She's controlling the beast. So she thinks that she's got complete control, but they will conspire together because they hate her to destroy her. And of course, that's what will happen. This system will get destroyed. This religious system that they've, politico-religious, military, economic system will be destroyed, and then Satan himself will take control and be ruling. And that's when he, causes everybody to receive a mark and all that stuff. But anyway, I've gone way over what I wanted to on this here, but I think it's imperative that people understand that this is what's going on, that this is what's been going on, and it's coming to its, final conclusion. And we're seeing all of these, and they're accelerating it because they know they've got a short period of time. That's what it says there in Revelations. He's when he gets cast back down here, he's coming down here with wrath, for he knows that his time is short. And so he's, going to have to accelerate all this stuff. And of course, the Father says that Christ said if he didn't shorten the days, no flesh would be spared. So this stuff is going to accelerate, because if he didn't accelerate it and shorten the days, then none of us would be spared. We would either all be genetically changed or all be killed. And that, and once you're genetically changed, this transhumanism, you're no longer human anymore. He did not die for transhumans. He died for human beings, the descendants of Adam. Okay? Because I just said it a while ago, we are descended from Eve. And by one man, Adam, sin entered in the world, so by one man must a propitiation be made for man, for humans, not for transhumans, not for cyborgs, but for humans. And that's why it tells us too that a man will become as scarce as the fine gold of Ophir, because people will go for this stuff. They'll be brainwashed into believing that they're doing something that's going to make them like gods. Back to the lie there in Genesis, you will be as gods. So there you have it, folks. I love you. I appreciate you folks joining me. Again, I'm sorry this went as long as it did, but sometimes it just takes that much time to bring out this information, to get it home as to what really is going on here. I hope it will be a blessing to you, that it will be edifying, that you, along with me, that we learn something. I pray that you will have wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and discernment, so that you not be deceived. Because I just read it there. He deceives the whole world. He deceives the whole world by all of these wonders and stuff that is going to be being revealed, and all of these miracles and stuff that they're going to be doing, false miracles. that is going to deceive people. Don't be caught up in it. Because I just got through telling you that he would deceive even the very elect if it were possible. But if you have the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, indwelling you, they can't deceive you. Because the Father says that in the last days he would reveal all things. And it's being revealed. I'm revealing it. And there's other people. There's a large number of people that are revealing the same kind of truth. And if you don't hear it from me, you can hear it from one of them. But I'm gonna keep bringing this stuff out. I'm gonna keep preaching it or teaching it. I'm gonna keep talking about it as long as I can, until they take me down off of here, or until they come after me. Because it will happen. I mean, it will happen. And I'm trying to prepare myself and get my mind, my body, and my spiritual strength and health as strong as I can. Because it says, pray that you be counted worthy to escape these things which are coming upon the earth, and be hidden in those days, and to be able to stand before the Son of Man. And Paul said, put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you might be able to stand in the evil day, having done all to stand. That's, we're going to need to be able to stand. And of course that's going to take, walking as close to the Father and the Son as you can get. And being filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. So with that, folks, I love you. I hope this will be, like I said, I hope it'll be a blessing to you. And I hope that if Yahuwah is willing, I will see you again on the next Shabbat.